and that's a PlayStation 1 shooter in Europe, just in time for the PlayStation experience. And this is also, yeah, well, why do that right now, right? What does it mean? But what's interesting to note is that in May 2016, they trademarked G Police, and that's another PlayStation 1 game, but we still haven't seen that. I think, and that's my wild guess, that we might be looking at PlayStation VR games here, that they're like bringing back old franchises, because this Lifeforce tenka game is a first-person shooter, and of course we have this Farpoint game coming, so that will use like some sort of motion, like Wii motion gun that we also saw with the Wii, obviously, like with Link's crossbow training. They will also have that for Farpoint, and maybe with Lifeforce tenka they will, yeah, do that again, because otherwise you just have to buy this thing for one game. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. This G Police game is a sort of helicopter game, yeah, in a city where, yeah, you're probably the cops. I haven't played both of them, but I just looked up some YouTube footage, and this is what I saw. But what do you think of my prediction that this may be like a PlayStation VR comeback for these PS1 games?
I think it's very smart. I mean, if you really think about what a VR experience needs to be, it needs to have lower graphical fidelity so the frame rate could be really high and very solid. So if you think about a PlayStation 1 game, obviously not the best looking games, because that was sort of entering the polygon era. But when it comes down to it, they could always make a remastered version of these, or just completely remake them from the ground up and make it so they fit the PlayStation VR experience that they sort of want everyone to experience. And that would be smart to sort of see whether or not these past titles that may have had a fan base, whether or not that could sort of rejuvenate that fan base to make a full standalone game on like the PlayStation 4 or whatever, that's not VR. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm not super excited for it, but I see it being a good thing in the long run if it does end up being a thing where they do make it a PlayStation VR game. But it's interesting that you noted that the G Police trademark hasn't really resulted in anything just yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, the PlayStation experience is coming around the corner, so.
Yeah, normally these trademarks, and especially for Sony games, mean something. So that's what I take away from, yeah, normally Guns Up, for example, they had that once, and then it was released during the E3. But what is interesting, of course, I mean, G Police was like trademarked in May, and then they had this E3 press conference where they only did the biggest hitters and exclusives and stuff like that. While the PlayStation experience is, of course, a celebration of PlayStation, where people will probably know these PlayStation 1 games that are there. So that, I think it will fit the PlayStation experience way more. So I think we haven't seen a lot of those trademarks, because, yeah, like I said, normally these trademarks mean something in my experience with Sony. So hopefully PlayStation VR games, because the PlayStation VR really needs some love. If they don't announce like some interesting games, then yeah, I'm like, okay, bought this system for $400, and what are we looking at? Resident Evil and Farpoint, and yeah, that's about it. So hopefully they will announce new games, but I'm sure they will. Otherwise, they will really shoot themselves in the foot.